Hello, Ryan here, and welcome to Star Citizen Sunday. This is a weekly show which covers all of the news from the week just past. Be sure to subscribe if you like what you see, and let's get on with it. This week, the Intergalactic Aerospace Expo kicks off. We are introduced to the Drake Cutter, plus we get updated on what ships are in the pipeline and on the way. So this week's Inside Star Citizen brought an all-ship episode, which took a look at the new Drake Cutter, as well as the Origin 600i rework. So kicking off with the Cutter, with the IAE now in full swing, Drake Interplanetary's CEO opened up the show revealing this brand new ship. Now, the Cutter is Drake's entry into the world of starter ships, and basically just opens up the game to new players, providing another vehicle that is nice and simple and easy to fly, and provides new players access to as many of the game loops in-game as possible. Now, starter ships are not supposed to excel in any areas of the game, just help to get players used to the universe, showing them what is possible, that they can then decide on what to pursue further. And one thing that sets the Cutter apart from all the other current starter ships, at this time anyway, is that it is up to date with all the current modern Star Citizen tech and gameplay loops. So the Cutter provides a well-rounded experience for one person to see what the verse offers, and it is very straightforward. So it's not very aerodynamic, there is nothing fancy about it, and the visuals of the ship represent this. It has a lot of things that look to be bolted on, tubing and pipes, and it also uses the Drake Vulture's VTOLs, so pretty much all right up my street. Now, it's very functional and robust. It has big engines that allow it to fly fast in a straight line, but turning is not that great, as it is a pretty heavy ship for a starter ship and has only small maneuvering thrusters. It does have quite a large interior compared to the other starter ships, lots of levers and clunky buttons rather than fancy hollow displays. The components are all exposed rather than being hidden away like we see in other ships, very similar to what we see on the Corsair in fact, and to enter the interior you come in through the cargo hold, which is where the majority of the components are located, plus a 4 SEU cargo grid. Now, from the hold, the door leads to the habitation area, in which you will have the basic amenities like a shower and a toilet. There is a bed with a reading light, which is a nice touch, storage areas and shelves and storage lockers. Then through the next door is the cockpit, which is where the last two components live, and from the looks of things it looks like one of them could be the computer. I would think life support would be in here as well, but I don't see it. But there is storage for a few weapons and a suit. It looks like 2 handguns or a tool, for example, and a rifle plus a large suit or a large weapon. And I personally do like the fact that the cockpit is on 2 tiers. I don't know why, it just kind of sets it apart. Now, the cockpit itself has this new awesome Drake control setup with the keyboards and MFDs, which appear to be slightly reduced to that of the Corsair, and one feature that is very nice is the side window armor, which can be brought in and toggled with a switch to the lower left on the control panel. I do expect that this could be a test case for the Karak windows, using this on a smaller scale to kind of figure out how well it works and what it needs to do to scale up to the Karak. It can also fit in a Mule or STV, but it doesn't look like anything else will fit, as there isn't a lot of room back there in the cargo hold. They did say it has larger fuel tanks compared to the other starter ships, so it should be quite well suited to very light exploration. And for me, I do love Drake's aesthetic, and I did CCU my Mustang Beta to this to fill that role as a kind of a small daily driver, but also as a small explorer like a Winnebago, being able to spend time in more remote locations of the verse while providing ample living space. And also, it will make a great Zero to Hero series ship, because at £45, it is a bit of a bargain. Now, I will be working on a Cutter tour soon, so do keep your eyes out for that, but all in all, I think it's a great little ship. Not for everybody, but certainly up my street. Now, before checking out the latest info on the 600i, the narrative team did speak a little bit about Drake Interplanetary and who they are as a company, as they are sponsoring this year's IAE. It is quite interesting listening to how they are further developing this manufacturer's character, as from the very first days of Star Citizen, it was always intended to be the pirate manufacturer, but that was before they started embedding these manufacturers into the verse more realistically, so naturally it had to change and they had to kind of create that backstory. Anyway, moving on to the 600i, thanks to all the work that they did on the 890 jump, the Origin style has evolved quite massively from when the 600i was done. So when reworking this ship, their brief was to bring it up to the modern day standards, as there are a lot of new features that now exist, and to make better use of its interior space. Now at this time, the new concept is almost complete, with only a couple of rooms that have not had their full concept work done yet, but for the most part every room has had its rework, with the biggest change of the ship being the replacement of the modular section, which was originally in the middle and is now at the rear, which means that the common shared areas are now in the central and front area. Now this makes the flow of the interior much better, knowing that the front half of the ship is going to be shared between each variant, with the modular gameplay sections found at the back being the change. So breaking the 600 into 3 sections, we have the bridge and captain's quarters at the front. They have remained relatively the same as the original, with only a few tweaks to the layout of the bridge's chairs, and for the captain's quarter the bathroom has now been switched to the other side. The lobby is then behind that, with the docking collar on the top deck, providing space for a few suits, and on the opposite side of that is the lift to take you between the 2 floors and the exterior. Now behind that, on the top deck, is the crew habitation area, starting with a large open communal area to make food and eat, and then 4 private crew bedrooms around the sides. Now on the floor underneath is where all the engineering and components are housed, very similar to the 400i, and then directly behind that is the modular section. And for the expedition section, on the top deck is the armory, with plenty of storage for a lot of extra equipment. Behind that is the hologlobe to allow you to navigate and explore, and then on the middle deck they have the med bay with a tier 2 bed, and besides that is a secondary cargo hold, which makes anything there more readily available to the crew, so ideal for holding your day-to-day supplies. And then on the bottom deck of this module is the main cargo hold and garage, which is now much larger than it was, capable of carrying a Nova tank. Also in this section are 2 small lifts, allowing you to bring cargo up into the main cargo area, and a smaller lift which goes between the 3 decks. Now for the touring variant, this is split between 2 decks, although one of those decks is split between 2 floors. Now the upper deck is the large lobby, and if you go up these stairs, they will take you to the main meeting, eating and bar area, and if you were to go left or right from there, then you can go to the private guest suite, which are very large, very luxurious, and come with their own escape pods. Now on the lower deck, you will find a spa with a pool, a sauna, a bar and a kitchen for the crew to make food for the guests. The exterior has remained as close to the original as possible, with the hangar doors just slightly moving and some additional cutouts for escape pods, plus the airlock location as well. And now the next step is to just find time to slot this ship into the production schedule, which they do want to do as soon as possible. But that was a look at the latest updates on the 600i. It is looking very nice indeed. Origin aren't really my style, but I certainly appreciate how this ship looks, especially the armory room. Once all items are physicalized, being able to just place armor and helmets and everything on the table while you get ready, laying it all out in front of you so that you know what you need, having it all at hand, that will be very cool. But with that said, that was Inside Star Citizen. Let us move on to Star Citizen Live. So this week's Star Citizen Live was an all-ships team round table with members of the various ship and vehicle teams. Now the whole discussion was very informal regarding all the vehicles and the process of how they are developed and built from all the different teams' perspectives that have a hand in the ship pipeline. Now it was a very interesting conversation about how the ship pipeline has evolved and changed since we last heard about it, so if you are wanting to learn more about how they do what they do and this whole process, as usual, I have linked the Star Citizen Live video in the description below. It is certainly worth a listen, but I'm not going to go through it here. What I will cover is the latest information regarding the ships and what is happening or not happening with them right now. Starting with the Banu Merchantman, which is still in active development, with a skeleton team currently tackling the exterior, defining the exterior shape right now. They do need to decide, however, whether it continues on in its development with the current team members that they have available, or whether they focus on other ships. So basically, do they continue working on it and absorb that hit on resources for a long duration, or do they move those team members onto something else that would be a better use of their time, as capital ships take such a long time to build? And they could use those resources to build smaller ships that can add better value to the game. Now, it is quite a difficult decision. I don't know the answer myself, as there are so many ships that we are waiting on that can heavily impact the game right now. Just for example, the Apollo But on the other hand, there are many people waiting for the Banu Merchantman, myself included. So I guess we will see what they decide, but do let me know in the comments what you would prefer. Do you want them to continue to finish the Banu Merchantman and obviously take the time that it will take, or use those resources to bring out other ships, be that old ships on the backlog or new ships to directly impact current and upcoming gameplay? Now, they do say that with the wrap-up of the Cutter and the Corsair, the teams who were working on the Corsair are now working on getting a lot of these Squadron 42 ships to the gold standard, which is just basically applying all the current standard of tech and style that they have learned over the years to all the old ships, and these will, of course, lead to the PU as well. The team who were working on the Cutter are now working on the Spirit, which is in early white box, focusing on the bomber variant first, but keeping the other ships in mind as well, like the E1, which turns out its middle section doubles up as an escape raft, which we didn't actually know before. Now, the Lynx ground vehicle is also in white box, which is based on the Ursa chassis, and will look visually similar, but be a different vehicle. Very much looking forward to seeing that, especially as the Ursa Rover is such an old vehicle now, so seeing what they can do to bring that up to the new model would be great. We all know they are working on the Argo SRV, which is the ship tractor beam ship, and this is going through final art right now. They say 2/3 of the exterior is done. Inside, the cockpit and the engineering section is progressing well, with just the habitation area still in grey box. The Vulture, of course, is done. That is just waiting to get the salvaging feature ready. And for the Hull C, this is with the Tech Art team and is mostly art complete, but they need Tech Art to get all of the appropriate parts moving, like what we see with the Scorpius and the Hull A having those independent parts being able to toggle. With discussions also happening right now about the economy in-game, which will need quite a bit of work before the Hull C can come in, as now they are trying to bring ships in that have the gameplay with them rather than just ships themselves with no functionality, which personally speaking, I didn't mind that. I was quite happy getting the ships in just to experience and appreciate even without the gameplay, but I completely understand why they want to do that, and I do appreciate that, having a ship that you can actually use right now, but I wasn't bothered either way. They have been looking at all the ships in-game, getting them all hooked up with the damage maps, which will take time, a lot of time, and won't be perfect for Tier 0 of salvage, being hull scraping, but it will get better over time. I think, from what I understand, the Drake Cutter has a very up-to-date or decent level of hull scraping or damage maps, so I will certainly have to check that out when I do my review of the Cutter. They are still working away on resource management, doing the prototyping for this. It is not quite ready yet to be rolled out to the ships though. But that was this week's Star Citizen Live. Quite a nice insight into how the ships are created and what discussions go into figuring out what ships come next. Next week on Inside Star Citizen, we will hear about the Polaris and its concept rework for its interior, as well as some ships that we kind of shouldn't know about yet, but some of us kind of do if we read the leaks. I'm pretty sure you all know now. But that was Star Citizen Live. Let us move on. So also this week, there was a new clean shot post predicting what they will expect to see at this year's IAE. The free fly has kicked off for the Intergalactic Aerospace Expo, so do make sure that you take this opportunity to try the alpha out for free. It is a great way to see if it is at the point where you want to play it, or if it still needs a little bit more work. The Drake Cutter was revealed by Drake's very own CEO, a lovely little starter ship, which I will take a closer look at in a dedicated video at a later date. And as is usual fashion, each day of the IAE brings a new series of ships on offer to see, to rent, to buy, so do look below for each manufacturer's post, which I have linked in the description, where you can check out what is available, and thus far we have had Drake, Origin and Aegis. So that brings us to the end of the show. If you do enjoy my content, please consider subscribing and hitting that like button. Also, I am able to do this thanks to my very generous patrons and channel members. If you appreciate what I do and would like to help make it even better from as little as $1 a month, all of the links are provided below.